Okay, for this session, we will be focusing more of understanding the biological perspective of our sexual behavior, more likely of our relationships related to love. Okay? So ano ba yung ibig sabihin sa atin ng pagmamahal? So matututunan natin yan mamaya kung ano ba yung mga factors involved when it comes to physiological perspective. Again, pag sinabi nating physiological perspective, ito yung mekanismo ng ating katawan kung paano nyo pinoproseso ang ating mga hormones o yung mga related functions ng ating katawan. So kung kayo ang tatanungin ko, halimbawa sa inyong klase, ano ang pagmamahal para sa inyo? Ito ba ay limitado sa pagmamahal ninyo sa inyong mga magulang? Ito ba ay limitado sa pagmamahal ninyo sa inyong mga kapatid? O kaya naman sa inyong girlfriend or boyfriend? O sige nga, kayo ang makakasagot ng tanong na ito. Ano ang pagmamahal para sa inyo? And so ito ba ay related sa ating religion? Ito ba ay related sa taong pinagtutuunan natin ng pansin? Halimbawa, meron kayong crush o kaya meron kayong tao na minamahal. So ito ang pagmamahal halimbawa para sa inyo. O kaya naman sinasabi ng iba, ito ay unconditional love. So let's say for example, meron kang mga kapatid o kaya meron kang magulang na binibigyan mo ng oras halimbawa. So iniisip mo, eventually magkakaroon ka ng trabaho para sa iyong pamilya at matugunan mo ang kanilang mga pangangailangan. O kaya naman itong tao na ito, yung minamahal mo, yung girlfriend mo, nagpo-focus ka sa kanya, no? Nakikita mo yung future mo sa kanya. No? Sana all po, sir. Nakikita po yung future po sa taong minamahal po niya. O, yan. So, ito yung mga bagay na kino-consider natin in order for us to understand what love is. Okay? So now, we are focusing more of the science of love. Ano ba ang nangyayari sa ating katawan para masabi natin ang mekanismo ng ating pagmamahal. Yan. So meron tayo sinasabi na 3 categories of romantic love. Ano ang ibig sabihin ng romantic para sa inyo? Meron bang mga nagbabasa sa inyo ng mga literature o kaya meron mga binabasa sa Wattpad related to romance. Halimbawa, o kaya meron kayo napapanood na na Netflix tawag dito, movies o kaya naman may mga nababasa kayong articles related to romance. Diba? Halimbawa, kinikilig kayo kapag binabasa niyo ito. O kaya naman kapag nakikita ninyo yung crush ninyo sa hallway o kaya naman sa Google Meet. Ayan. So let's say for example, you are referring to romantic love. Ano naman ang pagkakaiba ng 3 categories na sinasabi ni Dr. Fishers when it comes to romantic love? Meron pa po palang iba't ibang klase ng romance na tinatawag o yung romantic love na tinatawag. So number 1 dito, yung tinatawag natin na lust. Okay? So Tagalog, anong ibig sabihin? O ano ang pagkakaintindi nyo sa salitang lust? Okay? So this is likely influenced by what we call testosterone among males and estrogen among females. Okay? Meron din tayong tinatawag na attraction. So this is reinforced by our hormones called dopamine. So, familiar ba kayo sa mga salitang ito, sa mga hormones na sinasabi natin dito? Yung dopamine, yung norepinephrine, at yung serotonin. So, itong mga hormones na ito ay nakakaapekto sa ating katawan, sa ating pag-iisip on how we actually behave towards a person. So, ito yung nakakatulong pala para tayo ay magkaroon ng attraction towards a person. Okay? So, maaaring sabihin natin na kayo ay na-attract sa inyong opposite sex o sa inyong classmate halimbawa o kaya sa inyong childhood sweetheart. Meron ba kayong tinatawag na childhood sweetheart noong bata pa kayo? Talagang siya na yung parang kalaro ninyo tapos eventually parang telenovela ang dating na eventually kapag lumaki na kayo, siya na yung papakasalan ko, sir, parang ganyan. O kaya siya na po yung nakikita ko po na parang kami na po talagang dalawa. So attraction ang tawag natin dyan. O kaya naman bago kayo sa school, bago kayo sa loob ng isang classroom, di ba? Nagkakaroon kayo ng attraction na tinatawag. Again, these hormones called dopamine, serotonin, and norepinephrine tends to influence the way we express our attraction towards another person. Meron din naman tayong tinatawag na attachment. So ano yung mga hormones na nakakaapekto para tayo ay magkaroon ng feelings towards that person na tinatawag natin na attachment? Yung sinasabi natin na oxytocin at vasopressin. So ano yung mga relationships na yan? Mamaya pag-aaralan natin. Ano yung klase ng mga relationships na tinatawag natin na merong attachment, merong lust, at merong attraction? At lahat ba ng relationships natin, nag-occur ba lahat ng ito? Halimbawa, yung lust ba nag-occur ito sa magjowa? Nag-occur ba ito sa mag-boyfriend or girlfriend? Nag-occur ba ito sa isang mag-asawa, halimbawa. Yung attraction ba, halimbawa, nag-occur ba ito sa mga magka-classmates o kaya naman sa mag-best friend, yan, ganyan. Yung attachment naman, halimbawa, so nag-occur ba ito sa mga babies, halimbawa yung mga bagong panganak, 'di ba kapag sila ay iniluwal na sa mundo, yan. So magkakaroon sila halimbawa ng attachment towards their mother kapag naramdaman na nila na nandiyan na si nanay at bibigyan niya na ako ng pagkain sa pamamagitan ng pagsuso o pagdede sa kanilang breast. Okay. So romantic love can be divided into 3 parts. So according to the team experts of Dr. Fisher, of Rutgers. Now, lust, attraction, and attachment, these are the 3 categories of romantic love. So each group is distinguished by a distinct collection of hormones produced in the brain. Now, love. Now, lust, attraction, and attachment are 3 different types of love. Though there are some similarities and differences, each type is distinguished by its own collection of hormones. Sige nga, kung kayo ang tatanungin ko, ano ang pagkakaunawa ninyo sa salitang lust? Yan. Ano yung mga example, mga napanood ninyo o kaya mga nabasa ninyo tungkol sa salitang lust? O, halimbawa, merong pagnanasa ang isang tao doon sa opposite sex na tinatawag o doon sa tao na gusto niya. Halimbawa, no? Parang siya ay na-attract. So magkakaroon nito halimbawa eventually ng sexual intercourse o kaya naman yun nga last, no. Yung attraction naman, ano naman ang pagkakaibain na ito sa last yan. So hindi lahat ng attraction may necessarily have this what we call lust. So pwede ka ma-attract sa isang tao pero not necessary na meron kang pakiramdam na lust na tinatawag o yung sinasabi natin na pagnanasa doon sa isang tao, maaaring attract ka doon sa best friend mo. Pero kaibigan mo lang siya, pero hindi mo siya pinagnanasaan. O kaya naman yung attachment na natin na tinatawag. No? So maaari, meron kayong attachment, pero walang lust na tinatawag. So though there are some similarities, again, there are differences. So each type is distinguished by its own collection of hormones. Kanya-kanyang characteristic of romantic love. Meron tayong kanya-kanyang distribution of what we call certain hormones which actually trigger or contribute to these relationships that we have. Now, lust is fueled by testosterone and estrogen. So, napag-aralan natin, itong mga hormones na ito ay natitrigger kapag kayo ay nagdadalaga at nagbibinata. Sige nga, nung nagsimula na kayo magkaroon ng crush o kaya naman nung nagdalaga na kayo o kaya nagbinata na kayo, meron ba kayong masasabi na tao, classmate o kaya parang tao na parang na-attract kayo sa kanya in such a way that you are driven, na parang gusto mo siyang maging gusto mo siyang mapangasawa eventually, o kaya gusto mo siyang maging girlfriend, o kaya gusto mo siyang maging boyfriend eventually. Sir, wala na po akong ibang makikitang ibang tao bukod sa kanya na magiging boyfriend ko po, o kaya magiging girlfriend ko po. Sir, kapag ka nakikita ko po siya, nagbablush po talaga ako. Kaya naman po, sir, kapag ka po magkasama po kami, kinikilig po talaga ako. So most likely, this is what we call lust. No? So this is driven by what we call these hormones na sinasabi natin testosterone and estrogen. Okay, kapag mataas ang testosterone among men, so they are likely to have this characteristic na nandiligaw na sila. Yan. O kaya naman gusto nila, meron silang kasamang opposite sex na ganyan na parang they are more dominant to this kind of relationship. So bonding mediated by oxytocin and vasopressin. Yung lust naman na tinatawag is fueled by a desire for sexual pleasure. Our urge to reproduce. O yan, anong ibig sabihin ng mga salitang ito? Our urge to reproduce. Sige nga, kung kayo ang magbabasa ng konteksto na ito. Kapag sinabi na lust, meron daw pagnanasa o meron kayong pakiramdam na gusto nyo nang mag-reproduce. Ano ibig sabihin ng reproduce na yan? So, meron tayong different systems in our body. So, isa dyan, yung tinatawag natin na reproductive organ. Para saan ba ang reproductive organ? So, anyone from the group na makapagbigay ng idea nila, ano kaya ang ibig sabihin ng reproductive organ? So, para saan ba natin ginagamit ito? Okay? Sige, sino makapagbigay ng kanilang example? O para saan ba ito? Ano yung pagkakaunawa ninyo sa salitang reproduce yan? So, bilang mga tao, meron tayong opposite sex na tinatawag. Diba? Meron tayong babae at meron din naman tayong lalaki. Yan, very good. So, halimbawa, kayo ay meron ng asawa o kaya meron kayong boyfriend o kaya meron kayong girlfriend. So, this tendency to reproduce is to have a baby. No? Magkakaroon kayo ng baby eventually. Gusto ninyo magkaroon na kayo ng anak. Gusto ninyo kapag nag-loving-loving kayo, magre-reproduce kayo ng isa pang tao. So, dalawa lang kayo doon sa konteksto na yun, pero magkakaroon kayo ng panibago pang tao. Yun yung sinasabi natin na reproduction. So, which is shared by all living creatures. So, most likely, these are what we call mammals. So, bilang mga tao, so this is our natural tendency to reproduce. No? So, halimbawa nga, may mga nababasa nga tayong mga comments. Halimbawa, kapag sobrang crush nila, yung, tawag dito yung artista, di ba? Parang gusto nila na magkaroon sila ng baby doon o kaya gusto nila magkaroon ng relationship doon. So ito yung sinasabi natin na lust. So provides the evolutionary underpinning for this organisms pass on their genes through reproduction. Yan. And hence contribute to the survival of our species. So natural lang ito na pag-usapan natin yung sinasabi natin na reproduction kasi yan. Hindi tayo magkakaroon pa ng panibagong set ng mga tao. Kaya hindi magkakaroon ng apo yung inyong mga lolo at lola kung yung mga nanay at tatay ninyo ay hindi nag-reproduce. O kaya naman magkakaroon ng human extinction. O ibig sabihin, mawawala ang mga tao kapag hindi tayo nag-reproduce. So this is essential for what we call us human beings. Now again, lust is being triggered by what we call the hypothalamus of the brain. So this is involved. So as it stimulates the testes and ovaries. Etong testes at ovaries nito, these are the reproductive organs of male and female. Sa testes, para saan ito? Babae o lalaki? Sige, ano ang sagot ninyo? At ovaries naman, para ba ito sa babae o para ito sa lalaki? So yan, let's say for example, kayo makasagot. So napag-aralan ninyo ito halimbawa sa sex education during your elementary days or high school days. O para kanino ba yung testes? Para kanino naman yung ovaries? Halimbawa, ang lalaki ay meron silang testes. Ang babae naman meron silang ovaries. Yan. So to produce the sex hormones testosterone and estrogen. Yung testes, it triggers our brain or the testosterone is being reproduced by what we call the testes. On the other hand, ovaries are reproduced by what we call the estrogen is being reproduced by ovaries. So while these substances are frequently stereotyped as male and female, they both play a function in both men and women. So most likely these are characterized by sex. No? Halimbawa, kapag ikaw ay lalaki, merong kang testes, so you are more likely to have this testosterone. Pero, itong dalawang itong, testosterone and estrogen, they are present for both male and female. So, although the effects of estrogen are less evident, so some women report being more sexually motivated around the time of ovulation. So, kailan ba natin masasabi ng isang babae ay merong ovulation? So this occurs during the menstrual cycle, di ba? Kapag bago magkaroon ng mens ang isang babae, so they are sexually motivated. Ito yung sinasabi ng ating article o ng ating presentation. So and when estrogen levels are at their maximum. Yan. So bago magkaroon ng mens, they are characterized or women are mostly characterized by these drive or yung sexual motivation. Okay. On the other hand, we have attraction. So meanwhile, attraction appears to be separate but connected phenomenon while we can desire after someone we like and vice versa, neither can happen without the other. So attraction involves brain regions that drive reward behavior, which helps to explain why initial few weeks or months of a relationship may be thrilling and all-consuming. Di ba kapag bago pa lang kayo sa relasyon, di ba parang excited ka na ma-date yung kasama mo sa restaurant o kaya sa fast food. Halimbawa, sino dito yung bago pa lang sila mag-girlfriend or boyfriend, dinadala na sila sa Jollibee o kaya naman dinadala sila sa McDo. O tara, punta muna tayo sa Baguio as a friend. Tapos bibigyan kita ng na magandang hapunan. So, ibig sabihin, kakain kayo halimbawa. Tapos, this is initially occurring during new relationships o yung bago pa lang mag-boyfriend or girlfriend, getting to know more. Very good, no? So, nagkakaroon pa lang kayo ng initial na steps for you to build this relationship. So, na-attract muna kayo. Di ba kapag nakikita niyo yung isang tao, yung unang-unang tinitingnan ninyo, yung physical characteristics niya. Maganda ba siya? Ano yung definition ng maganda? Halimbawa, yung buhok niya, sir, makintab po, tapos po itim, tapos straight po. O kaya naman, sir, mas attracted po ako sa mga babae po na kulot po, halimbawa. O kaya naman, sino dito yung attracted sa mga babae na chinita? O kaya naman, sila yung babae na attracted naman sila sa mga matatangkad na lalaki. O kaya naman, mas prefer ninyo yung parang Korean pop, yung itsura. O kaya naman, mas gusto naman ng ibang babae yung typical na Pilipino, no, yung tawag dito, yung sila ay kayumanggi o kaya well-built. No, yan, halimbawa. So, meron tayong iba't ibang klase ng definition ng pagiging maganda or pagiging guwapo. And these are the things that we like to that person. Yan. Kaya nga, di ba, kapag tinatanong kayo, ano ang nagustuhan mo sa akin? Tinatanong kayo ng girlfriend ninyo. Sir, sana po all, no? Tinatanong kung ano pong nagustuhan sa akin. Ayun, pag-usapan natin. Our body during sex. Okay? So, let's have a short presentation about these physiological characteristics of our body during that time of sex. Okay, alright? So let me know in our group chat if it is working, so if it is audible or not.
From philosophers and historians to poets and
Good afternoon, traders. This is Anthony Esguerra from Learn to Trade Philippines.
From philosophers and historians to poets and scientists alike, love has captured our imagination and curiosity for centuries. Many have experienced the rush of falling in love for the first time, or the deep feelings of love for your children, family, and friends. But what is love from a biological perspective? No doubt it's intertwined with the evolutionary survival of our species. After all, you come from an unbroken line of organisms reproducing, from the very first microbe that split in two to your ancestors who have all successfully mated since the dawn of time. Sadly, if you fail to have children, this perfect streak comes to a halt. But while we're driven to reproduce, we're also driven to make sure our offspring survive. Though we often associate love with the heart, the true magic can be seen inside the brain. It may not be entirely surprising to find out that the brain of somebody in love looks awfully similar to one on cocaine. Cocaine acts on the pleasure centers in the brain by lowering the threshold at which they fire. This means that you feel really good a lot easier. We see the same thing in the brains of those in love, but it's not just the cocaine or the love that makes you feel good. It's the fact that anything you experience will now more easily set off pleasure centers and make you feel good. Because of this, you not only fall in love with the person, but begin to build a romanticized view of the world around you. Interestingly, nearby pain and aversion centers begin to fire less, so you become less bothered by things. Simply put, we love being in love. So what chemicals are at work to make all of this happen? Both during orgasm or by simply looking at photos of a loved one, there's a surge of dopamine and norepinephrine from the ventral tegmental area. This not only triggers sexual arousal and your racing heart, but gives you the motivation, craving, and desire to be with a person more and more. You see, romantic love is not simply an emotion, it's a drive from the motor of the mind, and this motor brings about intense energy, focused attention, and elation. The pleasure centers are part of the brain's reward system, the mesolimbic dopamine system. If you stimulate this region while learning, learning becomes much easier because it's pleasurable and perceived as a reward. We also see a surge in the neuromodulator oxytocin from the nucleus accumbens, sometimes called the commitment neuromodulator because in mammals it helps to reinforce bonding or attachment. When prairie voles are injected with either oxytocin or vasopressin, they'll instantly find a mate to pair bond with. Finally, studies have shown that people in love have low levels of serotonin, which is similar to people with obsessive-compulsive disorder. This is likely the cause of our obsession and infatuation during early love. Amazingly, these areas associated with intense romantic love can remain active for decades. And while there are many other physiological and psychological components that add to the mix, the truth is, science still knows very little about exactly why or how love works. And yet somehow, we all seem to know it when we feel it. Got a burning question you want answered?
All right. So we have learned more of the abilities of these hormones to influence the way we behave. So napag-usapan kanina din sa presentation o din sa video presentation na tayo bilang mga tao ay nakaka-experience tayo ng tinatawag na bonding. So ano yung hormones na nakapagbigay sa atin ng ganitong pakiramdam na kapag kasama natin yung isang tao, we feel safe about this relationship. Halimbawa, yun sinasabi natin na yung hormones natin na okay, for these meron tayong dopamine, meron tayong norepinephrine, at meron tayong serotonin. Okay. So dopamine is produced by our hypothalamus and well-known actor in the brain's reward system. So this can be triggered kapag tayo ay kumakain halimbawa ng chocolate. No? So as it released when we do activities that make us happy. So halimbawa kapag magkakasama kayong magkakaibigan, so this is triggered yung dopamine na sinasabi natin. Kapag masaya kayo, tapos parang wala kayong pakialam sa mundo. No? So spending time with loved ones as well and having sex. So are examples of these activities in this scenario. 'Di ba familiar kayo kay Boy Abunda? So let's say for example, kapag interview niya, 'di ba tinatanong doon yung sex or chocolate. So this is also an example on how they are being compared. No? So yung sex and chocolate. So this is the triggering factors ng dopamine. So again, during attraction, high quantities of dopamine and related hormone or epinephrine are released. So these hormones make us feel high, active, and euphoric. So napag-usapan din kanina sa video na yung mga tao nagtitake halimbawa ng ecstasy o kaya naman ng mga party drugs are have the same characteristic or almost have the same characteristics of euphoria na tinatawag na parang sobrang saya nila o kaya parang wala na silang pakialam sa mundo. No? So ito yung epekto minsan ng dopamine. Okay, so these hormones make us feel high, active, and euphoric. Wala naman siguro masama doon sa pagkakaroon ng feeling na masaya ka o kaya naman doon sa pagiging active and euphoric. So, pero meron din mga instances na kapag nasobrahan ang ganitong klase ng mga hormones, doon tayo nagkakaroon minsan ng problema. So pag-uusapan natin yan mamaya. And they can even cause a loss of appetite and insomnia. Di ba kapag tayo minsan ay sobrang saya natin o kapag nakikarried away tayo sa mga activities na ginagawa natin, parang hindi natin napapansin yung oras. O kaya kapag yung magjowa o kaya mag-girlfriend or boyfriend, minsan sila ay magkasama, parang wala na silang masyadong iniintindi pagdating dun sa ganyang klase ng problema na parang gutom ka na ba, be? Ganun. Tinatanong mo halimbawa ng girlfriend, yung kanyang boyfriend, be, hindi pa ako gutom. Yan. Makita lang kita, busog na ako. Yung mga ganyan linyahan. So, ayun yung epekto minsan ng dopamine. So, nagkakaroon tayo ng loss of appetite. O kaya naman minsan, yung insomnia na tinatawag. Sino ang familiar dito sa terminology na insomnia? Diba? Minsan, hindi na makatulog at hindi rin pa makakain. So, ito yung sasabi natin na epekto ng dopamine. So, sobrang in love ka. Yan. So, hindi ka na makakain. Hindi ka pa rin makatulog. So, sino dito yung nakakaramdam halimbawa ng attraction towards a person at talagang lagi-lagi niyang iniisip itong tao. epekto. So likely you are experiencing this manifestation of dopamine. So hindi mo na namamalayan yung oras na ilang oras ka na pala nakatingin sa profile sa profile niya o kaya naman dun sa sa Instagram niya, browse ka ng browse yan. So hindi pa po ako nagugutom hindi pa po ako nagugutom pa. So epekto ito ng dopamine. Yan. So meaning you can be so in love that you can eat or sleep. Yeah. So sobrang in love ka no hindi ka na makain at hindi ka pa makatulog. Yeah. So norepinephrine naman, so also known as noradrenaline, is a hormone that plays a key part in the fight or flight response. So which kicks into high gear when we are stressed and keeps us awake. So sino naman dito yung kapag sila ay in love o kaya sila in a relationship, so kaya nilang ipagtanggol yung taong minamahal nila. O yan. So kahit na magkaroon ng problema, ipagtatanggol ko kayo. Yan. So ito yung epekto naman ng tinatawag natin na norepinephrine. So kapag merong halimbawa, umaaligid sa boyfriend ninyo o kaya umaaligid sa girlfriend ninyo, talagang makikipag-away kayo. O kaya naman, dedepensahan nyo talaga. No? Huwag lang makuha ng iba. So yan, halimbawa yung epekto ng norepinephrine. So fight or flight response. So it's either fight or flight. So ang ibig sabihin nito, lalaban ka o kaya naman you will go away to that kind of situation. So when you are stressed, yeah. So norepinephrine again, when people are shown a photo of the one they are intensely fascinated to, so ibig sabihin, pinakitaan sila halimbawa ng picture ng kanilang minamahal. So the main reward system in the brain, including the ventral tegmental, so nabanggit ito kanina ng area, and the caudate nuclear spire, such a while compared when people being shown a picture of someone they have a neutral feelings to. Okay, so this is an experiment. Ano ba yung epekto sa atin kapag nakikita natin yung crush natin o kaya nakikita natin yung mahal natin sa buhay, no? So iba yung epekto ng stimulus ng picture, halimbawa ng crush mo o kaya ng boyfriend or girlfriend mo o kaya ng family mo when it compared to someone na parang neutral lang yung pakiramdam sa kanya. Okay, we also have serotonin. So finally, it appears the attraction causes a decrease in serotonin, so or hormone linked to appetite and mood. So people with obsessive compulsive disorder have low levels of serotonin, which has led experts to believe that this is what causes overwhelming infatuation that defines early phases of love. Okay, now let's have another presentation or video presentation about the science of love.
From philosophers and historians,
kahit paminsan-minsan lang can be unhealthy for the liver. Kaya take Essential every day.
From philosophers and historians to poets and scientists alike, love has captured our imagination and curiosity for centuries. Many have experienced the rush of falling in love for the first time, or the deep feelings of love for your children, family, and friends. But what is love from a biological perspective? No doubt it's intertwined with the evolutionary survival of our species. After all, you come from an unbroken line of organisms reproducing, from the very first microbe that split in two to your ancestors who have all successfully mated since the dawn of time. Sadly, if you fail to have children,
Okay, so we will be proceeding with the 8 reasons why we are being friends. So this is an explanation of some relationship that failed to some kind of romantic love. Okay, so we also have discussed pala yung the science of love, and now we will be proceeding to 8 reasons why we are being friend zoned. Right?
Hey Statistical fam, welcome back to another video. Have you ever fallen victim to the friend zone? Do you find yourself there a lot? Being in the friend zone means that there's an emotional mismatch between two people. One of them sees the other as a friend, but the other wants to be more. Here are 8 reasons why you're always in the friend zone. Number 1. They're oblivious to your feelings. Do you like this person but feel shy about your feelings? Do you find yourself constantly avoiding anything that might come off as more than friendly? For example, you'd never compliment or flirt with them. You're so careful around them that they might not even notice that you're attracted to them. 2. You waited too long to make a move. Were you attracted to them when you first met them, but didn't want to act on it just yet? You played it safe to see if you were compatible, but now you realize you've waited too long. They no longer see you as anything but a friend. When you don't make your intentions clear from the start, you run the risk of missing your chance for a romantic relationship. In other words, you gotta shoot your shot. 3. You don't seem like you're making an effort. Do you hide your feelings by treating them like any other friend? If you don't try to look nice for them, pay them any special attention, or try to spend time with them, then you're unwittingly walking yourself into the friend zone. Even if they are interested in you, your lack of effort may show them that you don't see them as anything but a friend. 4. You never defined your boundaries. Do you encourage your friend, whom you like, to go after someone else? Did you give them another guy or girl's number? While you might think you're just being a good friend, you're also sabotaging your own chances with them. By failing to define your boundaries, you failed to tell them that you want to be more than just friends. 5. You're afraid of jeopardizing the friendship. Do you have feelings for each other but fear it'll ruin your friendship? Both of you may feel that it's too risky to go for a romantic relationship, since it might not work out. After all, a good friend is very different from a partner, and it can be awkward transitioning from one to the other. This risk may be stopping you from becoming more than friends. 6. You have too much history together. Have you ever fallen in love with your best friend? Falling in love with your best friend can be complicated and messy. It's hard enough liking someone who only sees you as a friend, but it's even harder when you have years' worth of shared history together. They might feel like you're too close to ever be romantically involved, or that you're more like a sibling than a love interest to them. Number 7. You're too scared to tell them. Are you too scared to confess how you really feel? If they have no idea that you want to take things from platonic to romantic, then it's up to you to make the first move. It can be hard to gather the courage to ask them out. You may feel afraid of being rejected or worried they don't feel the same way. But until you take that chance, you're never going to find out. 8. The attraction might not be immediate. Were they attracted to you the moment you met? Maybe you didn't make a strong first impression, or you're not their type. But over time, you could win them over with your charm and kindness. People can fall in love without realizing it themselves. Just because they don't return your feelings right away doesn't mean you're doomed to be in the friend zone forever. Have you ever found yourself stuck in the friend zone? Let us know in the comments below. If you found this video helpful, be sure to like, subscribe, and share this video with those.
Okay, so these are some of the behavioral and psychological factors on how we tend to have this kind of friend zone na tinatawag. So hindi lahat ng relationship ay nag-end up doon sa tinatawag natin na romantic relationship. So minsan, yung tingin natin sa isang tao na parang siya na, parang siya na yung parang magiging girlfriend ko o kaya siya na yung magiging boyfriend ko, no? So hindi lahat nag-end up doon. So minsan, mas mabuting na maging magkaibigan. So yun sinasabi natin na friend zone. So attachment. So in long-term relationships, attachment is the most important aspect. So meron ba tayong gantong experience na parang na-fall tayo, halimbawa, doon sa kaibigan natin, no? Parang siya lang po kasi yung taong nakakaintindi po sa akin eh. O kaya siya lang po kasi yung taong nakakaunawa doon sa mga hinagpis ko po, doon sa mga pinagdadaanan ko po. Kaya talaga na-attract po ako sa kanya. So minsan, akala natin parang kino-comfort tayo, no? Parang minsan nag-good morning siya sa atin o kaya nag-good evening siya, kumain ka na ba, ganyan. So as a friend lang pala 'yon. So hindi lahat ay patungo dun sa romantic relationship. So let us try to check. Tanungin muna natin yung tao na yun kung anong level na ba yung inyong relationship. So in long-term relationships, so while lust, attraction are almost exclusively associated with romantic relationship, attachment is also involved in friendships. Ito yung sinasabi natin na attachment. So parent-infant bonding. So yan, isa pa ito sa mga characteristic ng attachment. So social cordiality, and variety of other intimate relationships. So minsan, meron mga relationship na hindi romantic o hindi papunta dun sa marriage or papunta dun sa intimate relationship. Pero meron silang tinatawag na attachment. So ano yung mga hormones na nakakaapekto para sa attachment na ito? So meron tayong tinatawag na oxytocin and vasopressin. So appear to be the two most important hormones in this situation. So napag-usapan natin kanina yung bata, di ba? Halimbawa, siya ay inuwal sa mundo. So ito yung nararamdaman ng nanay at ng bata, yung oxytocin and vasopressin. So from the first time na ma-feel niya na safe siya doon sa lugar na yon at sa tao na yon, so ito yung nararamdaman niya, yung oxytocin. So meron ba sa inyo na nakakaramdam ng ganitong karakteristik na parang kapag kasama ko po siya, feel ko po safe po ako, pero hindi po kami. Ganyan. So oxytocin ang karakteristik ng ganitong hormones. Yan, no? Parang safe kayo kapag kasama nyo siya, pero as a friend lang pala. So because of this, oxytocin is known as the cuddle hormone. Yan. Di ba kapag niyayakap kayo, gustong-gusto natin yung pakiramdam na niyayakap tayo, halimbawa, ni nanay, o kaya ni tatay, o kaya minsan nung kaibigan natin kapag tayo ay nalulungkot. So oxytocin yon kapag niyayakap tayo ng isang tao. Yung parang kinikilabutan tayo na parang ang sarap sa pakiramdam na niyayakap. No? So hindi siya sexual minsan. So ito yung tinatawag natin na oxytocin. Kapag niyayakap tayo, parang feel mo safe ka. Yan. So hypothalamus produces this oxytocin. So which release in significant amounts of during intercourse. So sometimes intercourse, lactation, o yung childbirth, similar to dopamine. So during the intercourse, maaring magkaroon pa rin tayo ng ganitong pakiramdam, yung oxytocin, na parang during the time of sexual intercourse, no, parang ang sarap ng pakiramdam in a way na hindi dahil dun sa private part na na-stimulate, but of course with the cuddle hormone na tinatawag, na parang you feel safe with that person. At yung lactation na tinatawag sa mga mother o kaya naman doon sa nanay na nagpapasuso o nagpapadede, no? Ito yung nararamdaman nila doon sa baby nila. Kaya nga kapag minsan nagpapadede ang nanay doon sa kanya baby, so ito yung pakiramdam niya na parang masarap sa pakiramdam na parang na kasama niya yung baby niya. Yan. So, yun yan. And childbirth, similar to dopamine. So not all the activities are necessarily delightful, but commonly they are all precursors to bonding. So yan, meron palang bonding na tinatawag. So it also explains why having separate places for attachment, lust, and attraction is necessary. So yung mga relationship na merong lust, so not necessary na merong oxytocin yun, o kaya naman meron silang other hormones included, and the same with attraction. So we are attached to our close family, but those other feelings have no place to the other. So yun nga yung sinasabi natin na some of the relationships that we have, no, hindi necessary na present yun sa ibang relationship na meron tayo. Yan. Ang tanong naman natin ngayon, when love hurts. So, kailan tayo nasasaktan minsan? Yan. Kapag tayo ay iniiwan minsan, o kaya naman nasusobrahan yung pagmamahal natin. So, ito naman yung mga drawbacks of what we call love. So, when we are in love, hormones are produced, making us feel happy, rewarded, and connected to our loving partners, family, or friends. So, but that can't be the whole story. So, hindi lang pala puro sarap yung pagmamahal. Yan. So, love is frequently accompanied by jealousy. Minsan, nagsiselos ka, no? Kahit hindi naman kayo, nagsiselos ka. O kaya naman, kapag meron siyang kasamang iba, nagsiselos ka, tinanong mo, yun pala, kaibigan lang pala niya. O kaya naman pala, kapatid lang pala niya. O kaya naman, pinsan lang pala niya. Nag-overthink tayo minsan. So, jealousy ang tawag natin doon. Yan. Meron tayong erratic conduct. So, minsan mali yung pag-iisip natin dun sa tao. Minsan napapraning tayo sa sobrang pagmamahal natin. O, saan ka na naman galing? O, sino naman yung ka-chat mo? Sino naman yung ka-text mo? Kaya naglalaro ka na ng Mobile Legends, siguro meron kang ka-chat na iba dyan, no? So, meron tayong ganitong erratic conduct. Yan. So, ito yung sobrang pagmamahal minsan. So, sabi nga dito, no? Hindi lahat ng sobra ay nakakabuti. And irrationality, as well as variety of other negative feelings and moods. And so it appears that our amiable gang of hormones is also to blame for the drawbacks of love. So minsan nakaka-apekto din pala yung mga hormones natin kung bakit minsan sobrang selosa tayo o kaya minsan sobrang seloso tayo o kaya overprotective tayo minsan sa partner o kaya sa family members natin. So these are likely driven biologically. So hindi lang pwede natin sabihin na hormones lang lahat ng ito. So minsan factor din ito ng ating psyche o ng ating pag-iisip. Minsan nakaka-apekto rin minsan yung mga paniniwala natin o kaya naman yung mga predetermined thoughts natin na kapag ganito yung ginawa niya, siguro ganito yung ganito yung ganito yung ginawa niya. O kaya naman siguro kaya siya naglalaro dahil meron siyang kausap na iba doon. Siguro kaya siya nagchat-chat o kaya hindi siya nagre-reply kasi meron siyang ibang chinachat. So minsan parang paniniwala natin o kaya meron tayong prejudice na tinatawag. Gina-judge natin kagad, hindi muna tayo nagtatanong. Yan. So dopamine and addiction. Ngayon, nasabi dun sa natin sa unang presentations natin na minsan ang brain natin ay likely driven by what we call the dopamine. And dopamine is also addictive. So ibig sabihin nito, nakaka-addict daw yung sobrang kasayahan. So ano yung mga instances kapag tayo nakakaramdam ng sobra-sobrang dopamine? So dopamine, for example, is the hormone in charge of the great majority of the reward and pleasure circuit. So which means it's in charge of both good and negative. So we get dopamine rushes for both our virtues and vices. So in fact, when it comes to addiction, the dopamine pathway has received a lot of attention. Meron ba kayong mga nakikitang addict halimbawa? Yan. So ito yung minsan na sobra-sobra sa kanila, yung dopamine. So when drug addicts consume cocaine and when we binge eat sweets, halimbawa, no, sobra-sobra yung kinakain natin. Ayan. The same regions that light up when we are feeling attracted light up. Yan. So yung dopamine regions na yan, ito yung yung nati-trigger talaga kapag tayo ay na-addict sobra sa droga na tinatawag natin na cocaine o kaya naman dun sa too much love. So dopamine and addiction again. So cocaine, for example, causes dopamine signals to last for longer than it should. So resulting in a momentary high. Diba? Parang lumilipad yung pakiramdam mo. Feeling mo, ikaw si Superman. Feeling mo, ikaw si Wonder Woman. Feeling mo, wala makakatibag sa pagmamahalan nyo. Di ba? Yung mga dugyot serye, halimbawa, mga ganyan, di ba? So in some ways, attraction is similar to an addiction to another person when we grow emotionally dependent on our spouses. So parang ayaw nating mahiwalay sa kanya, ayaw nating mahiwalay dun sa tao niyo kasi parang addicted na tayo dun sa love na nararamdaman natin. So the same brain regions lights up when we become hooked up to worldly stuff. So addicts in withdrawal are similar to love-struck persons who want for the company of someone they can't see. Yan. So pares pala ng karakteristik minsan yung mga addict o dun sa mga nag-a-addict o kaya naman dun sa mga taong sobra-sobra yung pagmamahal na nararamdaman. So dopamine and addiction again. In both these levels, dopamine, which runs our brain reward circuits, is beneficial. So okay lang minsan na maramdaman natin na masaya tayo. Sir, wala po ba akong karapatang maging masaya? So kanya-kanya naman tayo ng ibig sabihin ng kasiyahan. Pero yung sobra, in such a way na nakakasama na ito sa pang-araw-araw nating pamumuhay o kaya naman dun sa sa routine natin na activities natin. Halimbawa, pinaguhugas ka ng plato, okay, pinaglilinis ka ng kwarto mo. So inuuna pa natin yung catch-up natin halimbawa. So masama na yun sa natin, sa sa pang-araw-araw nating pamumuhay. So let us try to check first. Ano ba yung mga natin, yung mga tendencies natin? Halimbawa, hindi na tayo naliligo. Hindi na naliligo kasi, sir, ano pa po, ama, ano pa po ako, kachat ko pa po yung yung boyfriend ko po. Mamaya na yan, ganyan sabi. O kaya naman, nak, kumain ka muna. Nay, ano po, kausap ko pa po yung girlfriend ko po. Mamaya na po yan. So, addicted na tayo doon sa relationship natin o doon sa tao na yun. So, instead, naunahin natin yung pagkain natin. Instead, naunahin natin yung pagligo natin. So instead na unahin yung makakabuti, inuuna natin yung tao na nagbibigay sa atin ng pleasure. Yan. So ligo muna bago yung bago love. So self-care muna, sabi nga. nga nila. So in a relationship, too much dopamine can lead to unhealthy emotional dependence of our relationship. Masyado na tayong dumidepende doon sa tao. O sino na naman yung kachat mo, ganyan. So minsan napaparaning yung tao na ito, no? Pagdating doon sa sino yung kachat mo, bakit hawak na naman niya yung cellphone niya, magkasama tayo, bakit hindi mo ko kinakausap? Yan. Sorry na po. So while appropriate levels of oxytocin help us bond with our partners and feel warm, cuddly, high levels of oxytocin can also foster prejudice. Yung sinasabi natin na bonding hormone o yung cuddle hormone, minsan nakakasama rin daw pala yun. Yung parang tayo-tayo, no? Kaya naman, grupo natin to. Tapos versus sa ibang grupo yan. So we try to have this prejudice o kaya meron tayong mga hindi magandang behavior towards another group because of this bonding na sinasabi natin. Yan. So, minsan nag-offer to sa mga religions o kaya naman sa mga faith, halimbawa, no? O kahit sila lang maliligtas, halimbawa. So, bonding, ganyan. So, ito yung bonding nila yung manira ng ibang grupo. Yan. So, hindi sila maliligtas o kaya mapupunta sila doon sa hindi magandang lugar dahil sa paniniwalaan nila. Okay, so party drugs, so MDMA and GHB. So these are some of the drugs that may trigger the same effect with the dopamine. Okay, so it's possible to have too much of a good thing. Recent research on party drugs like MDMA and GHB suggests that oxytocin is the hormone responsible for feel-good, sociable effects these substance induce. So minsan kapag ka merong tawag dito, merong bonding yung mga Westerners o kaya mga napapanood natin, no? So, ito yung ginagamit nila, yung party drugs na sinasabi natin. So, meron silang the same effect as with dopamine. So, in this situation, these happy sentiments are taken to an extreme, causing the user to disassociate from his or her surroundings and act erratically. Yan. Pagka nag-consume sila ng bawa ng party drugs o nung cocaine o kaya naman nung MDMA, no? Parang wala na silang pakialam sa mundo. Yan. So feeling nila sila lang yung tao sa mundo. And these may tend to have some erratic behavior. So addition in oxytocin, the role of oxytocin as a bonding hormone appears to reinforce the pleasant feelings we already have for the individuals we care about. So that is oxytocin. Works in the background as we become closer to our family. So yan, kapag family-oriented ka, o kaya naman you are drawn to these people, o kaya naman sa person na ito, yung mahal mo, kaya yung other half mo. Yan. So this is an effect of oxytocin. You are feeling bonded to this person or to this group. So oxytocin ang responsible dyan, reminding us why we like them and boosting our fondness for them. Okay? So meron ding masamang epekto ito gaya na nabanggit natin, no? Yung tinatawag natin na ethnocentrism. So while this may be beneficial to monogamy, pag sinabi natin monogamy, so isa lang, stick to one. Okay? Sino dito? Sa klase natin yung stick to one, meron pa bang stick to one dito? Yan. Stick to one po sir, per section. Okay. So while this may be beneficial, meron pa bang stick to one dito? Yan, monogamy ang tawag natin siya. So such connections are not always beneficial. So for example, oxytocin has been linked to ethnocentrism, so where it increases our fondness for people in our already established cultural grouping. So yan, no? Parang nagbaband tayo and ayaw na natin o kaya naman hindi na natin ino-open yung opinion natin o yung room for constructive criticism kapag nakikriticize yung grupo natin. Hindi, kayo yung mali, yung grupo namin yung tama. Yan. So epekto ito minsan ng hormones na ito. So those who are different feel more foreign. So as a result, oxytocin like dopamine can be a double-edged weapon. So likely, pwede ito maging mabuti at pwede rin ito maging masama kapag sobra-sobra. So pag-usapan naman natin ngayon, the science of heartbreak. Ano ang nangyayari sa utak natin? Ano ang nangyayari sa katawan natin kapag tayo ay heartbroken? Alright?
From literature to plays and movies throughout the between emotional and physical pain. In fact, from literature to plays and movies throughout the world, humanity's fascination with love is just as strong as our obsession with heartbreak. But is a broken heart simply an abstract concept, or are there real physical effects on the body and the brain? Whenever you endure physical pain, such as a cut or injury, the anterior cingulate cortex is stimulated. Surprisingly, it's this same region of the brain that's activated when you feel excluded or experience the loss of a social relationship. Perhaps physical pain and emotional pain aren't as different as we once thought. Think about the ways in which we describe lost love. He ripped my heart out. It was a slap in the face. I'm emotionally scarred. This use of physical description paints a clear relationship, at least in language, between emotional and physical pain. In fact, studies have shown that human beings would rather be physically hurt than feel social exclusion. But why would these two different experiences elicit the same feeling in our bodies? It's clear that our bodies use physical pain to prevent the risk of imminent danger. But from an evolutionary perspective, anything that increases our overall survival and fitness as a species is likely to persist. The rise of relationships and social bonds between lovers and friends alike became an important part of survival for many species. You look out for me, and I'll look out for you. And just like your desire to not be burned by hot coffee again, animals desire not to be socially alone. The pain from both instances increases our chance of survival by avoiding less desirable outcomes. You're more likely to survive and reproduce if you're not alone. This can be seen in studies of primates who, when separated from loved ones, experience an increase in the hormone cortisol and a decrease in the hormone norepinephrine, causing a major stress response. Ultimately, this contributes to the depression, anxiety, and loud crying documented. For humans, a breakup, loss of a loved one, or isolation can trigger a similar reaction, creating the perception of physical pain. So, how can we alleviate this pain? After all, band-aids or creams are meant for physical wounds. Studies have shown that high levels of social support are related to lower levels of pain, whereas socially alienated individuals show poor adjustment. So if you're feeling brokenhearted, surround yourself with friends and family, as difficult as it may seem. And if someone you know is suffering emotionally, be there for social support, because scientifically, as humans, we all just want to fit in somewhere. This
Yan. So napag-usapan natin ano yung nangyayari sa katawan natin kapag tayo ay minsan ay heartbroken. So kayo ba ay nakaranas na ng heartbreak, no? Kapag meron kayong tao na akala ninyo pang forever na ninyo, kaya pang habang buhay na, pero biglang dumating sa punto na nag-away kayo tapos hindi ka na lang bigla kinausap, bigla ka na lang hindi chinat, yan. Bigla na lang ginost, no? So, halimbawa, bigla na lang iniwan ka sa ere, no? Ano yung pakiramdam ng iniiwan sa ere? Yan. So, syempre, kapag iniwan sa ere, hindi mo alam kung anong gagawin mo. So, meron ka bang ibang plano? So, minsan parang nawawalan na tayo ng gana sa buhay. O kaya, minsan nawawalan tayo ng ganang kumain, napapabayaan na natin yung sarili natin. So, dati, masigasig ka mag-aral o kaya naman gustong-gusto mong pumapasok kasi nandyan siya, nakikita mo siya halimbawa. Pero ngayon, hindi ka na niya kinakausap, hindi ka niya nakinikibo. No? Nawawalan ka na ngayon ng gana. Nawawalan ng ulirat daw. Okay, so these are the things that we try to experience, no, during the heartbreak. At ang sabi dun sa video, no, na kapag nakakaranas daw tayo ng heartbreak, minsan daw kapag kasing halintulad ito ng sakit na nararamdaman natin physically. So mas mabuti pa nga, nasaktan mo ko kasi magagamot ko pa yon, kasi gagaling pa yon. Pero yung sakit sa puso na binigay mo sa akin, panghabang buhay at hindi ko makakalimutan. So yun nga minsan, no, kapag ang isang tao nasaktan mo, no, damdamin niya yon hanggang sa tumanda na siya, hanggang sa graduate na kayo. So alam na alam pa rin niya yung detalye ng pag-aaway ninyo. No? Nasa ulan ako, hindi mo ko pinapasok sa bahay ninyo, iniwan mo lang ako. Yan, hindi mo ko pinakilala sa parents. Hindi mo ko pinakilala sa parents mo. Yan. Hindi mo ko pinakilala sa mga kaibigan mo. So, dinideny mo na tayo. Yan. So, heartbreak na ko yan. Dalamhati, pighati. Yan. So, ito yung mga bagay na nararanasan natin. At nagkakaroon ito ng mga physical manifestation na tinatawag. Minsan, hindi na tayo kumakain, hindi na tayo naliligo. Ganyan. So, does love makes us dumb? Minsan ba, nakakaramdam ba tayo na kapag ka nagmamahal tayo, parang na ano tayo, parang hindi tayo matalino? Ano pa bang ibang term doon sa dumb, no? Parang minsan parang nagiging ano tayo, no? Parang pritukuto tayo minsan. Yan. Sinabi lang niya na nagawa ko lang naman yun kasi sobrang mahal na mahal kita. Yan. Di nga. So, yun nga ang nangyayari minsan. Kapag nagawa niya yon tapos sabi, wag mo nang uulitin ha, ganyan, okay na yon, ganyan. Sige, balik ka na sa akin, wag mo lang uulitin, ganyan. So nagkakaroon minsan ng paulit-ulit na cycle. Yan. Yan. Minsan nagiging nagiging dumb tayo kapag inuulit-ulit natin. So once is enough, two is too much. O yan. Minsan, kapag dalawang beses o pangatlong beses nang inulit sa'yo, yan, mag-isip-isip ka na kung tama pa ba yung mga desisyon mo sa buhay. Natamaan si Christy. Natamaan. Ano din? Iwas din. Okay. So, love and prefrontal cortex. Okay. So, sexual arousal, but not necessarily attachment. So, minsan meron tayong sexual tendencies or sexual behavior towards a person, pero ayaw natin ng attachment. Ayaw natin ng commitment, halimbawa doon sa tao na to. No? So, gusto lang natin siya because of this activity. Pero hindi natin siya nakikita as a long-term partner or long-term relationship, no? Yan. So, halimbawa, yun nga, naranasan niya yun. So, seems to turn off sections of the prefrontal cortex. Yan. Parang nagto-turn off, parang nagsha-shutdown yung rationality natin. Itong prefrontal cortex na to, it is responsible for our rational thinking kasi. Okay, kapag nag-turn off yan, syempre, hindi ka na makapag-isip ng tama. So, sinabihan ka lang na, pagpasensyahan mo na ako, nagawa ko lang yun kasi mahal na mahal kita. So, yan, nag-shutdown na. So, pinagbigyan mo na ulit. So, ano mangyayari ngayon? So, inulit lang ulit yung pagkakamali. So, which control critical thinking? Yan. Nawawalan na ng critical thinking, hindi ka na ulit nakakapag-isip. Ayan. Sinabihan ka na ng best friend mo, sinabihan ka na ng magulang mo, sinabihan ka na ng teacher mo, sinabihan ka na ng kung sino-sino pa na huwag mo na siyang balikan. Pero dahil sinabihan ka lang yan na sorry na be, yan, balik ka na ulit sa akin. Huwag mo lang uulitin. So self-awareness and rational action. Yan. So self-awareness, nawawalan tayo ng awareness sa sarili natin minsan and rational action. So in a nutshell, love makes us foolish. So have you ever done something you subsequently regretted because you were in love? Yan. So sabi natin, no, nakagawa ka na ba ng hindi magandang bagay dahil sobrang in love ka doon sa taong yon? So yan yung minsan epekto ng ating sobra-sobrang pagmamahal. Siya-shutdown yung ating rationality. Okay, so for the conclusion, tama. So, hahamakin ang lahat. Iniwan ang magulang, iniwan ang pamilya. Masunod ka lamang. So, love is finally, everyone has the ability to define love. Again, ano ang pagmamahal para sa inyo? So, minsan, sabi nila, importante na mahalin muna natin yung sarili natin. Kasi, kapag minahal natin yung sarili natin, meron tayong mga bagay na pwede natin i-share doon sa tao, no? Kapag hindi natin yung mahal natin, pag hindi natin mahal kasi yung sarili natin, no? Hindi natin pwedeng i-share 'yun, no? Kasi wala naman tayo noon eh. Hindi naman natin mahal yung sarili natin. Paano natin mamahalin yung isa pang tao? O kaya pag-aalaga ng aso, 'di ba? Kapag nag-aalaga kayo ng aso, kailangan mahal mo muna yung sarili mo kasi baka mapabayaan mo lang siya, baka hindi mo rin siya mapakain, baka hindi mo rin siya mailabas sa bahay ninyo, hindi mo rin siya mapaglakad. So ganun din sa pagmamahal ng tao. So kailangan love yourself first sa ika nga. So and for better and for worse, if it's just hormones, we might be able to have just chemistry with almost anyone. So hindi lang ito tungkol sa hormones, hindi lang ito sa physiological activities. Well, this is just one of the factors to explain why we love, why we tend to be in love with a person or with a group of people, no? Pero somehow it is actually related to our society as well as our psychological constructs. So but it's up to the rest of you to decide whether it continues any further. Yan. So, sabi na, lagi ka na lang nasasaktan, lagi ka na lang pinapaluha, yan. Nasa tamang tao ka pa ba? Yan. So, tanungin natin ulit yung sarili natin kung yung pagmamahal na nararamdaman natin o nararanasan natin ngayon, ito ba yung pagmamahal na ipapamana natin sa ibang tao, halimbawa sa natin, sa magiging anak natin, o kaya dun sa magiging pamilya natin. So, panghabang buhay ba na gusto natin yung ganitong pagtatrato or treatment coming from that person? Yeah, so this concludes our discussion for understanding the biology of our sexual behavior. Right?